when I left our church, right, with the calling to go be in business, I, within a week of leaving the church, tried to go get hired at another church. Like, I straight up was like, no one's going to want me in the business world. I have no skill sets to do this. And so I went and tried to get a job at another church, and praise God, that didn't work out. And it should have worked out, but it didn't, because the Lord had already given me my marching orders.
Yes.
And so Tamra, I was like, what do I know? And what I know is people.
Mm-hmm.
And so because we moved to a city where we were not from as soon as this all happened. So we're not just in a new vocation, we're in a new location.
Oh man.
And so I don't know anybody. And so I remember always praying, like driving to networking events, just going like, Lord, like, I'm naive. I trust everyone. Like, just connect me to good people that will have my best interests at heart. And so that was really like the first part of it for me. And then the second part was I had to go through a really strong humbling.
Yeah.
Because I'd become super arrogant as a pastor, and I wasn't able to process it until I was no longer a pastor. And so the Lord put me in roofing.
Yep.
Because good night. Like, what's the opposite of being a pastor? It's probably being a roofer. And I just remember, Tamra, thinking, you know what? I may not know everybody's answers, but I know people who do. And so if I can approach every conversation I have humbly enough to be able to say, you know what? That's a great question. I don't know, but I will find out. And that was like I think that's what helped me the most, is just coming into the realization of like, I don't have this figured out. I'm years away from even being able to think I do. And so the Lord just said, man, I'm going to send you to a place where like, there's no one to turn to but me.
Come on. And
if you'll do it, this will go really well, but you're going to also have the chance to make it about you and be selfish.
Yeah.
And so that was just going in open-hearted and with just a willingness to say, if me not knowing is a deal breaker, I'm willing to have that happen.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be honest and transparent with people.
Yeah.
And that kind of inched me down the road.
Yeah. And knowing that, like, that's one of the most powerful and most profound things that we can do now, because even as our businesses grow, our influence grows, which we're going to talk about influence growth for you and what that looked like. If we're not in that place of humility, oh my gosh, it can go really wrong really fast. And we can truly squander everything that God has given us and trusted us with. I think that's been one of my biggest conversations with the Lord in the last year, in revelations with him, is I've walked and I've been trusting him and trusting him and trusting him. And it was last year he gave me this really profound vision. I won't go fully into it now, but at the end of the day, I was asking him a question like, that's awesome, Lord, but what do I do with this? And he said, what do you want to do with it? And I'm like, well, no. I'm really used to you giving me the plan. What do I do with this? And he's like, I trust you. And receiving that trust was like, oh, wow, that part of me is no longer, I've died to that part of myself. And now you trust me. Holy cow, what an honor. What a space of humility to be in when God says, I trust you enough. Go ahead.
I love that.
Right?
So good.
So talk to me about the kind of the shift of serving people really well. You haven't not stopped serving people really well, but you're on a roof and you decide at this point, or the Lord decides, I don't remember that part of the story, that you need to tell people about it and you need to get on camera. Why?
Yeah. There's not a good reason why. Like, no, who wants to watch videos about roofing? Nobody does. I was still very naive in business. I was only probably like a year into being in the business world. And that was right when Facebook Live came out.
Okay.
And so I just had this thought of like, okay, what advantage do I have? I think this is a great question for people to ask themselves, is like, from my past experience, what advantage does that give me?
That's good.
that may not appear to be an advantage on the surface.
That's good.
Because for me, on the surface, like telling my wife, like, hey, guess what? I did a video about roofing today. She's like, okay, why? And how is that going to ever make money? Right? So it didn't make any sense, but I just knew, good night. I'd been a communicator for a living for 10 years.
Right.
And so surely if there's a guy that can get in front of a camera and leverage it to his advantage somehow, it could be me.
Yeah.
And so I just on dumb faith just started turning on the camera and talking about roofing. And I was on the roofs of some houses and buildings. And it's crazy that I didn't fall off and die. But I just,
Lord.
In my humility, I thought, I'll try anything. I'm not too proud to hold anything back. And so I started doing it. And again, I was still networking and I was still talking to people and getting my name out there. And what's wild, Tamra, is like, there's so many times in our lives where nothing seems to be working until it does.
That's right.
And it's that split second that all of a sudden we go, what just happened? Yeah. How did that? And it was because of our faithful sowing.
So good.
Where it acted as if nothing was happening. And so I started that journey, and the first hailstorm came through Oklahoma City, and I got 100 inbound calls, texts, DMs, while all these other roofers are out there knocking doors and people. I just sat in my living room and answered the phone